We are delighted to have you join us today for this professional development session through the Center for Online and Continuing Education. Our topic today has to do with writing effective objectives and making sure that those objectives are aligned throughout the course. And our presenter today is Dr. Enid Conley. And Dr. Conley is on the review team for the Center for Online and Continuing Education. And she has also been doing reviews as a master reviewer for Quality Matters for a number of years. So she brings a great deal of effective perspective to this session. So thank you, Enid. We're delighted to have you sharing with us today.
Thank you, Judy, and welcome everyone. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about developing measurable course level and module level objectives. Our goal is to be able to give you some tools today so that you can build them. And most important, if you just need help, don't be afraid to reach out, because that is very common for a lot of us in the background who are working to get questions about course level and module level objectives. It is normal for your eyes to start spinning and your brain to overload. So that is also a tool. If you need help, reach out, and there's plenty of people that are always willing to help you. Our objectives for today for our professional development is to be able to understand some of the things that, for whatever reason, throughout time have become convoluted, and most people don't know the difference between a course goal and learning objectives, or the difference between a course and a module level objective. And also the very, very important thing about a course is recognizing your course alignment, how everything comes together. Identifying measurable verbs and identifying measurable actions for those wonderful verbs that you have. One of the first things I want to discuss, what's the difference between a course goal and a course level objective? I found a definition that I thought would be helpful, very short and sweet to the point, the end toward which an effort is directed. So if you develop a course, you'll have a course goal. And those course goals are usually very broad. They have a purpose, but you really cannot measure them. And it's usually about a paragraph or two, and you can find those in course catalogs. You can also find them in program and accreditation organizations, and they are not by any way, means, or shape any kind of course objective, nor could you take them literally, because if you look at them and really study them, a lot of these goals just would be impossible to measure. You could use words in goals that you could never use to develop something that's concrete, like an objective. And I found a really wonderful definition from Brown and Green. A goal is a general statement about the intention of the instruction, and that's pretty good. What you intend to teach and what you would like to get out of it. Now, the good thing about course goals is that you can translate them into objectives. And it's usually a little bit of work, but you can make them measurable and make them into something that is concrete. Let's look at a course level objective. Again, objectives are you're dealing with facts or conditions, and you have to perceive them without distorting them by personal feeling, prejudice, or interpretations. They are what they are. The term objective and outcomes, we see that used interchangeably a lot when I'm reviewing courses from other institutions. I see that. They either use objectives or outcomes. And very important, when you're dealing with objectives, you have to accurately use Bloom's taxonomy. And we'll go back to that a little bit later about actually using things that make sense. Because you have a whole list of different verbs you can use, but sometimes if you don't use them correctly, you get something that's not measurable. And then with a measurable objective, you're also going to need a measurable action right behind it. Your course level objectives have to be very concrete and measurable because they form the basis of alignment for your course. They're going to describe what the learners are going to be able to learn and do once they complete the course. They should overarch your entire course. They have to contain a measurable action, and they have to be broad but yet specific. And when I say broad, I mean because they're going to overarch your entire course. So you're not going to make them as detailed as you would a module level objective. Now, your module level objectives, they're a little bit different. They're, of course, going to be measurable and have to have a measurable action. They form the base of alignment in your course because they are consistent, in other words, aligned with your course level objectives. They describe that mastery. This is where it gets very, very specific, and it has to be observable. And they're usually in smaller and discrete pieces. Again, they become very specific, measurable, tangible, and have to contain verifiable results or items, such as producing something like a paper, a project, a discussion, something that you can actually measure, that you can see. And the module level objectives will always explain how the learner will be assessed. Your course alignment is the concept that's intended to let everybody know that everything works together. If they align, they're congruent with each other, they work together. Both your course level and your module level objectives, they form that basis. So that's very, very important that from the very beginning, those are solid. And then you have the other elements that, of course, are part of your alignment, but they also have that important part of making that course solid. And when I say solid, I mean it's a course that you've got measurable objectives, measurable actions, everything aligned, everything works together and in a very fluid manner. And I kind of came up with this little chart. And when I say course level objectives here and kind of have those little arrows surrounding it, they should be surrounding the entire course. At the bottom, you have your course level objectives, that starts it. Then your module level objectives, your assessments and measurements, instructional materials, your learning activities, and your tools. And you'll see these all have little codes behind it. Those are quality matters standards. So if you can imagine it this way, where your course goals are going to float around this triangle, and everything in there has a layer where it builds up to where you have a good, solid course. Now we're going to look at a course level objective. I want you to take a few minutes and tell me what you think. Look at this objective and what do you think? Do you think it's measurable? Why or why not?
Looking at this, my first response is to say it's not measurable, but actually it looks like it's like 7 different outcomes. Explaining multiple literacies is one, and then applying it to discussion, applying it to research, applying it to source evaluation, etc. So those might be measurable, but this is a whole lot of outcomes put together.
You're right. As a course level objective, it would work because it's not very broad. It doesn't overarch the entire course. And then there are terms in there. We talk about measurable actions. How would you measure essential? That's a great word for directions and anywhere but objectives. Other words, it would be very difficult to measure readiness. How do you measure readiness in an objective? So you were right. There's multiple objectives in here. It's not just one. And again, we're going back to the basic. It needs to be, the course level objectives needs to be measurable, broad, but yet specific enough where you can measure something, and clear. This would be a nightmare for a student to try to figure out. Now let's look at a module level objective. And by the way, these are actual objectives that I have, I collect, I know it's a weird collection. I collect objectives from courses that I review. And these are some of the ones that I thought would be great for today. Take a stab at this one as a module level objective.
Okay, I will agree with Joe that how do you measure understanding? So identifying your mindset could be one, and something other way to demonstrate that you understand other mindsets could be another one, but the way it is right now, no.
Correct. Think about it for a second. How are we going to know what somebody else's mindset is? Even identifying your mindset for a module level objective, it is so fuzzy. It doesn't really bring this to a point where you say, okay, it's specific, clear, tangible, and contains verifiable results. And yes, understand is one of those words that never, that's the big no word. One you used to see a lot, it's getting better. I don't see it as much when I'm doing reviews, but you are correct. This one was also not measurable. This was one of the module level objectives that aligned to that first course level objective I got. And the whole team question was, well, how do you want us to identify our mindset? And how do we look into somebody else's mind to understand them? So it's very unclear as a module level objective. And I've kind of left some time for questions because I usually get a lot of questions about module and course level objectives. So I want to open this time for anybody that has any questions about them. A lot of the ones that I have seen with module level objectives are, as an objective, complete questions 5 through 6 of the exam. And that's obviously something that is not an objective, it's a direction. And people sometimes confuse those directions with module level objectives. Could you say mindset as measured by X, Y, and Z? This course where they were talking about mindset was actually a writing course. There was no way to actually measure somebody's mindset. They were talking about writing and what do you think about this and that. It was a very difficult, very difficult thing to measure. Actually, it was impossible. I can't say difficult. Absolutely, I will discuss some measurable ones. I have a list here of actually very good ones that are measurable with a course level objective for this one was examine communication techniques for gaining critical mass awareness. And the aligned module level objective was identify 3 strategic emerging communication strategies that align with the social change theory. I know it's hard to envision it when you're not seeing it in a course and you're seeing everything that goes together, but these were actually very well written course level, module level objectives, and the alignment was very clear. You can actually, the assessments made sense, everything that supported the course. It was just such an easy course to review because the alignment was just clear throughout everything, through the course level, module level, through the assessments, through the tools, learning activities. It all just, it came together beautifully.
Enid, could you explain briefly the importance of making sure that course objectives, module objectives, assessments, and whatever instructional materials would accompany those need to line up in terms of timing? Because what I often get working with faculty is questions about whether they can put different assessments and different modules that relate to objectives in other modules, if that makes sense.
Right. No, I've seen that a lot. Absolutely not. It won't. That's where you lose the alignment. And that's where I always, when I'm doing a review, I always put in there, ask your ID for help. Because if you have in one module, if you're looking, for example, at social change theory, and in the other module, you're looking at the relationship of global advocacy to the mission of an international non-governmental organization, you can't have an assessment that doesn't align with it. Everything has to support everything else. At the very end, it'll all support, hopefully, your course goal, but everything has to be together where it actually makes sense. You can't, a lot of things I see too is where faculty will add a multiple choice assessment that has nothing to do with that module. And Joe, you're absolutely right. You cannot do that. Everything has to align, be congruent within each module to support your course level objectives and your course goal. I have a list of references here if anybody's interested. You'll get a copy of this. I absolutely found the Brown and Green textbook to be absolutely amazing. It's pretty new. I had some other seminal works in here that were good. They had, ideas that I would say can last through time. And of course, Quality Matters, which absolutely is always with it. Every several years, they go ahead and update everything. But that's another very helpful resource for people who are looking at alignment and how to develop your course level objectives. And most important for faculty that's out there, please reach out to your IDs. They have a lot of information. They know where to find stuff. They know where to ask people for the right people, the right questions. I can always say, just if you listen to your ID, you may not get a 30-page paper from one of us back. Finding a lot of stuff unmet. Thank you very much. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out and don't be shy.